Boss.
Okay.
The boss is sweating. Look at him. How's James?
He's good.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. All right. Whole bunch of speakers. So you can hear me well. If you're in line for lunch, please continue. But we're going to go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And the four-way test. The things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you very much. We've got quite a few guests and visitors today. If you brought a guest, Philip does the routine. Please stand and introduce them. If you are a visitor, please stand and introduce yourself. And we'll work table to table. Philip, welcome. Virtual member Philip is here with us in person. This doubles as your wedding reception, so. Who's next? Steve.
I have one guest today. This is Joe Champ, and Corey Christensen is leaving us, and Joe bought Corey's house. So I was telling over at Corey's house with his lovely wife and my lovely wife for dinner this week, and I talked to him to come to Rotary with.
Thanks, Steve. Welcome, Joe.
Yeah, Joe, I'll let Joe tell you about stuff.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here. My wife, Polly, and I, and two very small dogs who don't belong here, just recently moved to Steamboat from Dallas. We feel so fortunate to be part of today and have lunch with you, but fortunate to be in a place where many of you live. It's just beautiful, and you're all very lucky. And we look forward to making Steamboat our home and contributing to make Steamboat a better community for all.
Excellent. Thank you. Please go ahead.
I'm Angie Campbell. I actually just saw you guys at the event last week at the Rotary Park there with the Rotary Park, and I pulled that structure and all the quotes there, and it feels like a sense of peace in there, and I just wanted to see what you guys did. And I learned a little more, so I learned a little.
Thanks, Angie. Angie, were you the one that warned me about the bear up in the tree? Okay. Well, you get credit for it anyway. She literally saved all our lives. Not really, but. Jennifer?
Karen Johnson, this is her third visit, and she's really interested in being a Rotary.
Thanks for coming again, Karen. Please.
Yes, I'm David McLean from Las Vegas, Louisiana, and I'm up here to visit the Rotary Club and also take some big rainbow trout.
Best of luck. And who else? I know we had another visiting Rotarian. Oh, Andrew.
Andrew Zabak. This is my third meeting or second reading, I believe, and my application is in, so we're
Thanks, Andrew. And where's our other? There we are.
I'm Derek Scott. I'm visiting from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. Bringing a kid out here to go to Colorado. That just happened on the very meeting this afternoon, so thank you for welcoming me.
Yeah, it's a great story. Derek is staying at the Grand and saw the sign. Yeah.
Scott, I've heard my third meeting when the Rotary and the stars aligned, so thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming again, Scott.
I'm John Madron, same deal, third meeting. I think everybody else here. Glad to be here. First meeting. Excited to see you. Visit Source of the Future here.
Thanks, John. Welcome back. Did we miss anybody? Ron, it's been a while since we've seen you. You want to just give everyone a good wave? There you go. Ron Tom, everybody. Awesome. Well, let's get going. Thought for the day, I'm filling in for Crystal, who couldn't make it. And I had something on my phone picked out, and now my phone is what's live streaming on YouTube, so wave to the cameras. Hopefully it doesn't ring and ruin everything. My thought for the day, I found a poem about kindness, a reflection on kindness. And if I can read my chicken scratch, I'm hoping. One of the greatest gifts you can bestow upon another. When someone is in need, lend them a helping hand. Do not wait for a thank you. True kindness lies within the act of giving without the expectation of anything in return. Check. Short and sweet. Tiffany, did we want to do the reading for Andrew?
I do.
I don't know. Yes.
Hello, this is Andrew Zabak's second reading. If you have any issues, problems, good stories, let me know. Or anybody on the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Tiffany. And is PJ here today? Great. No objections then. Andrew had his first reading last week at our special anniversary celebration at the Peace Pavilion, which if you missed it, you missed it. It was great. It was, I think, the best time we've ever had out there. Just a lot of fun, fellowship, and a good reflection on kind of the process of building it and how many Rotarians it took to make happen. As a corollary to that, I haven't seen Ellen, but she conned me into, oh, here she is, Ellen. I'll do this one for you, you can do the other one. She got a couple requests for new pavers for the Peace Pavilion. If you're interested in remembering your family or contributing to the Peace Pavilion upkeep, there are more pavers for sale. We need to meet a minimum of 10 to place an order. We've got 2 or 3 so far. So reach out to Ellen, give a nice little wave so everyone knows who you are. You're going to say something, go ahead.
Yeah, and then have a form if you want to see what it actually entails, having grading, what each paver costs for how many, for the size and how much time, so.
Thank you, Ellen.
And I'll send an email out as well.
Yes,
Thank you.
please do. Board meeting update. This one I'll try to rip through pretty fast, but we did a lot. We reluctantly accepted Alice Klauser's request to move to honorary status. She promises she will still be around. I know I mentioned this at our Peace Pavilion gathering as well, but wanted to make sure the club at large was aware. As usual, we're streaming on YouTube today for those who can't or are unable to attend today in person. I don't have my phone to see comments today. I apologize. If you are here attending online, be sure to email Tiffany so she knows you're here. After Alice Klauser's request, we did accept, obviously, Andrew's application for membership, and Tiffany just gave his second reading. It's exciting. Next week, the District Governor, Cherie Shield, is joining us here for our meeting. She will be the program, and part of what the District Governors love to do is induct new members. So barring any complaints about Andrew, which I don't expect, she will be able to induct him as a new member, the newest member of our club, next week, which is exciting. I did mention quickly last week as well, but as a result of the board meeting, we're planning more social get-togethers. We were trying to find a time to go camping up north, and it's just not, we couldn't find a way to make it work this year, unfortunately. Stay tuned for that next year, but also Jillian is going to kind of be corralling a bunch of different efforts for regular club gatherings, be it members only, members and spouses, members and families. We really want to get a good mix of things going. We do a great job of serving this community. I think we do a less good job of celebrating one another, and there's a great opportunity to improve upon that. We talked more about the dunk tank. We've finally got some policies in place around how it's going to be used. Carrie Shea and the Steamboat Hockey Association are going to be trialing that for us later this month. If you're interested in learning more about setup and breakdown, if you're interested in sponsoring a nonprofit who may want to use it in the future, we will need Rotarians to be on site when we're using the dunk tank. So this has been a long time coming. Thanks, Eric, for making it happen. Now we've kind of got some structure around it, and Carrie's going to be our guinea pig to sort out and make sure nobody breaks arms or anything.
We appreciate you offering to be the first one in the tank, so thank you.
And yeah, I couldn't be more pleased. Unless it was in February, then I'd be really right on top of it. We did approve several new policies. Some were just updates to existing policies. Others was just deciding to formalize board decisions that had been made in the past that we thought fit better as policies. All these policies are available for review on your website at steveo.rotary.com. I'll go through them very quickly. The first one we approved was how to use the endowment fund at the Yampa Valley Community Foundation. Funds are going to be allocated to the grants committee, who will be responsible for determining how to spend them. The board may approve additional special use of funds under extraordinary circumstances. This was an addendum made to the policy based on some decisions we made, not even last year, but at the end of Randy's year, to award emergency funds to lift up to help deal with the COVID crisis. So again, just formalizing things that we've already been doing. There was a policy about operating reserves. Every year, at the end of the year, we make sure that the club has enough in reserves and cash reserves to continue operating for 6 months. We decided that for ease of accounting, so Ange doesn't get any gray hair, we can round that up to the nearest $5,000.
I keep coloring it.
What's that? You can color it if you ever go gray? I think that makes sense. The last one was about nonprofits as club programs. When we do invite nonprofits to present, we do require board approval. And it serves as a reminder to our nonprofit presenters that, and this is something I'll be doing going forward as we have nonprofits presenting, it's inappropriate for them as programs to ask a captive audience for donations. So if anyone in the club is interested in contributing, they hear about a nonprofit and they want to help, approach the presenters after the presentation. And then the final one is just about email list usage. Any messages we send through Club Runner, because I think pretty much everyone has that capability, need to be related to club business. Pretty simple. I already talked about District Governor Cherie visiting next week. Ellen, we also wanted to talk about your meeting on Tuesday.
Just announced, you have it written there?
I do. I don't know the time though.
You're doing 4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock on Thursday, Ellen has a public awareness committee meeting. Reach out to her for an invitation.
For more people to come, we have a great committee.
We have a great committee.
And other new members like Steve Weiss.
And other new members like Steve Weiss.
There's all sorts of people that would
She's
love
quite a
it.
ventriloquist.
And we have libations at our meetings.
Libations at the meetings. This is great. Thank you, Ellen. It's quadraphonic today, Jim. We got 4 speakers.
I'm worried about you. You call us a captive audience. What do you mean by that?
Okay, drop the sides. We got them. I forgot to check the signups for Flower Barrels. I'm sure we still need a little bit of help to finish out the month. So please double check those emails from Chancey. Carol, would you like to come up and...
Just to tell you and you
No, please. Everyone's tired of listening to me already.
We're so cute.
So I made this announcement last week, but I know a lot of you were not able to come last week, so I just want to make sure everybody's aware. Quick background, in years gone by, we used to be required to buy tickets to special events that Rotary hosted and fundraisers. We do not really do that with any of our fundraisers anymore. We want people to come that are ready, willing, and able to come, and so we encourage you to do that. But the one thing we are asking, and again, not a requirement, is for Lobster Fest, we are encouraging everybody to donate a bottle of wine. We are doing a wine pull, and very briefly what that means is guests that come to the Lobster Fest that night will buy a ticket for $25. They will receive an unknown bottle of wine, and all that money goes to our benefactor. So we always ask Rotarians to either bring a bottle of wine from your own stash. You can go buy a bottle of wine, and this year we have a third opportunity, since I happen to have a way to get wine at a much cheaper price than probably most of you. is that if you would like to just donate $25, we will charge it to your account and I will buy the wine wholesale from my vendors at the store. So you will essentially be donating a bottle of wine that is worth considerably more than $25. And if you would like to do it that way, I have a sign up. We had a great response to this last week. I encourage anybody that, if you've already signed up, just pass it on, but please keep this going through. We think it's a great way to really have a nice selection of wines for the wine poll. If you have any other questions about the wine poll, please feel free to contact me. If you want to bring something from your own wine cellar, we're asking a minimum value of $25, so it's a good value to people that are buying the tickets. Please bring it to Rotary any week in the next couple of weeks. I will collect them if you would like to do it that way. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'm trying to interpret Julian's sign language here. I don't know if it's a message just for me or that she wants to make an announcement.
The board update, did you talk about how much money
No, would you like to say that?
No, you should. But it's an important update.
It is an important update, but I don't remember the number right now. 26?
I didn't hear the question.
Julian is reminding me how important it is for us to let the club know how much we're contributing. The club is contributing to the Community Foundation's fund, the Rotary Fund at the Community Foundation, at the end of her year.
Oh, I think $26,000.
And it was $26,000, as I remember from the top of my head. Last year, the club went through a lot. We weren't sure what the outcome of COVID was going to be. As you all know, we were virtual for most of the year. We offered reduced rates because we weren't buying lunches, but many members elected to continue paying dues at the full amount as if we were still eating lunch. Because of that, we had significant budget overages. And I think the way I put it in our board meeting was that this is a great way for the club to pay itself for all the good work that we've done. So congratulations, you guys made a great paycheck this year. Yeah, and all that, as you know, goes into our fund, which is then distributed throughout the community as grants. So it's spectacular. We're really nearing in on that $1 million mark, and $26,000 helps us get that much closer. So fantastic, everyone. My last update, and I want everyone to please pay attention to this, is I know I made an announcement 2 weeks ago about needing digital committee volunteers. I received no responses, and this is the last week that we have C helping before middle school starts again next week.
She dropped out.
So she cannot drop out. Shut your mouth. Jim is it? Let's say you want to volunteer, Jim? You can hide behind a black curtain.
You wouldn't want me to volunteer.
Please reach out. If you're online and want to help, please reach out. We're trying to spool up the high school intern program and get an interactor out here to do this and learn some valuable skills. I can't do everything. I can't do them both.
If we were to volunteer, would you provide training for the illiterate?
Yes. Limited training is available.
Okay.
At cost.
At cost.
Please, God help me. That concludes my announcements for today. I would like very much for the club to give a warm welcome to our program for today. Angel Hoffman, Regional Director, and Katie Kilber, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Regional Development Manager of the Alzheimer's Association of Northern Colorado.
Great. Well, thank you all for having us here today and talking about the Alzheimer's Association. I'm going to give you kind of a broad overview of our organization and talk a little bit about the disease itself. It's a disease that carries a lot of stigma, and a lot of people actually don't like us to come and talk because it's not great news. But we feel like education is power and it's important, and chances are you probably have someone in your community that you know that's living with Alzheimer's or another dementia. So I'm going to start actually just by talking about our name, Alzheimer's Association. Our full name is actually Alzheimer's Association and Other Related Disorders. So we're not just about Alzheimer's, we're about all other types of dementia. And just to kind of clarify what the difference is between dementia and Alzheimer's, because that is a question that we get asked very frequently. So dementia is actually an umbrella term. Dementia describes symptoms. It's not a disease unto itself. So it's someone who's having problems with memory, judgment, reasoning, activities of daily living that are impaired enough to impair daily life. Under that umbrella of dementia, Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. So 2/3 of all dementias are Alzheimer's disease. There's a lot of other different types. You might have heard Lewy body dementia, frontal temporal dementia, vascular dementia. Those are some of the most common ones. There's something called mixed dementia, which is a combination of dementias. So a lot of different types. So that's kind of why you hear the word dementia and Alzheimer's used interchangeably, just because Alzheimer's is the most common. So our organization, we are national, so we have chapters in every state. We were kind of hodgepodgey until about 6 years ago, where we really had a concerted effort with very strategic goals, because our vision, as you see here, is a world without Alzheimer's and other dementias. Of course it's not. Sorry, here, let me get my slideshow going. All right. So our mission is actually threefold. Accelerating global research. We are the largest nonprofit funder of research in the world. I don't know if that's surprising to anyone. We're third only to the US government and the Chinese government. So our goal is accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection. There's a lot of research out there now between some research in Scandinavia called the Finger Study, and there's actually also called the Pointer Study here in the US, that is showing that there are a lot of things that we can do to decrease our risk. So we're looking at exercise, diet, social interaction, and cognitive stimulation. Those are the 4 pillars that we know actually drive risk reduction. And if you had to guess out of those 4 things, does anyone know what might be the best thing for you to decrease your risk?
Socialization.
I heard a lot of different things, but it's exercise, right? That good, healthy blood flow to our brain is super important. Sometimes people are really dismayed when we say that, but that's exercise is your friend. Also, then maximizing quality care and support. So we provide a lot of support to those living with the disease, as well as people, their care providers. Our organization was actually started in the 1970s by Dr. Jerome Stone. He was a physician, and his wife actually had Alzheimer's disease. And back in the 70s, there wasn't a lot known about Alzheimer's disease, and there was no support system. This was a journey that you went on by yourself. And so he organized at a grassroots level and started chapters across the US. And like I said, now we are nationwide. So we have more than 6 million Americans living with Alzheimer's. And when you throw out stats, sometimes we forget the people, right? So if you think about 6 million people living with Alzheimer's disease, that number is expected to rise in 2050 by 13 million, or up to 13 million. Right now, there's a medication, you may have heard about it, Aduhelm, that was approved by the FDA with some controversy back in June. But it is the first medication that has been shown to slow the progression of the disease by actually a reduction in beta amyloid. So when we talk about Alzheimer's disease, there's 2 proteins that are the hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, tau and beta amyloid. There's been a lot of research and study that's really been focused on beta amyloid. This is not the end-all, cure-all medication, but we're excited because we hope that this just continues the research in that trajectory. There's a lot of actually additional research being done on tau, so we're not just focused on beta amyloid. In 2021, Alzheimer's and other dementias will cost the nation $355 billion. By 2050, these costs could rise as high as $1.1 trillion, again, if we continue on this same trajectory. That's why we're really excited, like medications such as Aduhelm. Aduhelm, by the way, it's super expensive. It's like $56,000 a year. It's only done intravenously, and it's for people with mild cognitive impairment and early stage Alzheimer's. So it's not for someone in middle or later stages. So you can see that there's a lot of work cut out to be done for this to be accessible by the general public. Between 2000 and 2019, deaths from heart disease have actually decreased 7.3%, while death from Alzheimer's disease has increased 145%. Another staggering statistic is 1 in 3 seniors dies with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. And it kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. So when we talk about Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, age, gender, genetics, ethnicity, and head trauma all play a part in risk factors. Do you have a guess on which one of those might be the most significant?
Head trauma.
Your head trauma?
Genetics.
Genetics. It's actually age. As we age, we have an increased risk of Alzheimer's disease. 1 in 10 people aged 65 years of age and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, and that number actually goes up to almost 1 in 3 by the time someone gets to be 85 years of age. And we also know that there's been some research that on autopsy, someone will have all the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, but they never presented Alzheimer's disease. And we think that might be attributed to what we call cognitive resiliency. So the more things we learn, be curious, that cognitive stimulation is also really important to us. Gender is actually a factor. 2/3 of all people living with Alzheimer's disease are women. Again, we're not exactly sure why. Hormonal factors, women actually traditionally used to have less education than men. And so we know that higher education actually decreases your risk factor. But gender, we also know from research that the tau in a woman's brain spreads differently than in a man's brain. More like an infection. So some interesting gender differences. Ethnicity plays a role. Blacks have 2 times the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease or another dementia, and our Latinx community 1.5 times. Part of that is because social determinants and health disparities. We look at genetics. A lot of people feel like that should be the biggest risk factor, or they're worried that that is the biggest risk factor. And definitely if you have a family history, you do have an increased risk, but there are 2 types of genetics. One is deterministic genes. And so if you have, there are mutations on several chromosomes. If you have one of these deterministic genes, you will definitely have Alzheimer's disease. However, it's 1 to 2% of the entire world's population that has this deterministic gene. If you have this in your family, chances are you know it because it's so prevalent. Most of these families are involved in research studies. You tend to develop it in your 40s and 50s. And then there's, on the other side of that, are risk factor genes like the APOE4 gene, which you may have heard about. If you have 2 copies of those, you have 1 from each parent, you have an increased risk. Does not mean that you will definitely get Alzheimer's disease, it just means you have an increased risk. And then head trauma. We've all heard about the chronic traumatic encephalopathy that football players have developed, or soccer players, and just any kind of repeated head trauma or severe enough head trauma can increase our risk. Also, one of the things that we are really focused on is how do we decrease discrimination for people seeking care. We know that discrimination is a barrier to Alzheimer's and dementia care, and these populations have reported discrimination when seeking health care. 50% of Black Americans, 42% of Native Americans, 34% of Asian Americans, and 33% 40% of Hispanic Americans. So we are trying to break down those health disparities. One of the things that we do at our organization is we really reach out to people both living with the disease, as I said, and those caregivers. We do care consultations. I'm the regional director of Northern Colorado. I work with folks here in Steamboat, Craig, Hayden, all the way to the Utah border, providing care and support. We actually have a support group here in Steamboat. Did anybody know that? Yeah, a couple of people? Yeah, we have a support group here in Steamboat. We also do a lot of disease education. As much like you all, we have done a lot of education via Zoom this past year. But we also are slowly doing in-person education. We will talk to any group. We all have brains, so everyone has a vested interest. So we talk about health promotion, effective communication strategies. How do you decrease someone's behaviors? How do you, early, middle, and late stages, we help walk people through that and educate. We also have early stage programs, so people that were recently diagnosed, or we also have programs for people with younger onset Alzheimer's. Younger onset Alzheimer's is for anyone 65 years of age and younger who has developed the disease. We have a very robust support group and education for the person living with the disease as well as their care partner. And then we have a ton of information on our website. Our website, we have a lot of pre-recorded classes on there that families can take. We actually also offer education not just to large groups like this, but if a family wants to get together with their neighbors so they can best support their family member living with the disease, we will provide it for a small group as well. We also have one of the best things, tools that we have is a 1-800 helpline number. This is available 24/7 because often when things happen to someone, they happen in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Family caregiver is like, I'm at my wit's end, they don't know what to do, and they can call the helpline. Professionals can call the helpline. I'm a nurse working the night shift and I've run out of strategies for dealing with this patient. I need resources for my patient and I'm not sure everything that's available in the community or I don't have time to look it up. Our helpline number is staffed with master's level staff. We have a community resource finder that we did in partnership with AARP, so they're able to tap into resources all across the U.S. If you have this number and you need support for your mother that lives in Florida, you can call this number. So this number is a one-stop shop. You get a real person, you don't go through a bunch of different punches. And then again, our website. As I mentioned, we're the largest nonprofit funder for research. We have over $235 million and over 650 active best of field projects in 39 different countries. We also are in partnership, Bill Gates started what's called Part the Cloud, some funding with, from the Gates Foundation, where researchers can really data dump information in real time and other researchers can look at that information. So how do they build on top of that? For a long time, we didn't have a lot of funding for Alzheimer's and other dementias. And not to pit one disease against another, but Alzheimer's was way down here, cancer might be way up here. And so if you're a young researcher, you want to go where your funding is, right? And so just being able to increase that level of funding and build and have those great, bright minds that are involved and be able to sustain careers and finding out what is the cause and how do we impact that. It's been really exciting and we've seen amazing progress just in the last decade. We probably aren't, I don't know how many years away, but having a blood test. Right now there are some blood tests that are pretty close to, you could go to your doctor's office and they can check the level of tau in your blood. And so we're really not that far away from being able to do that. The flip side is that when we have something like that, we want to be able to do something about it, right? And so that's where we're hoping that these new medications like Aduhelm will be successful. We also have something called the Alzheimer's Association International Conference. Last year it was via Zoom. This year it actually was held in Denver, which was really exciting. And these are researchers from all over the world that came to share information. During that week, you probably heard a lot of talking points that came out in the paper or radio and things that they're looking at. Air pollution is one of those big things that the last couple of years have shown to actually increase a person's risk for dementia. Again, that good oxygenated blood to your brain is super important. We also have what we call the Alzheimer's Impact Movement. And this is where we work at the national and state level to develop policies that impact people living with dementia and their care partners. And so we've done a lot of advocacy work on providing so people get good care at home, so they have access to care. Right now here in Colorado, we're working on a bill that has to do with educating our law enforcement. And so making sure that law enforcement are educated about dementia and having the tools to deal with someone living with dementia. I do a lot of education to law enforcement, and I am really proud to say that here in Steamboat, and I can't think of your sheriff off the top of my head, but there was I don't know if everyone heard about the incident that was in Loveland, Colorado, and it didn't go so well for a lady who stole something from Walmart. They called the police. It wasn't a good outcome. However, a very similar thing happened in your community. And what happened was that the store recognized that this person was living with dementia. They called law enforcement. Law enforcement came, recognized the symptoms, and this person was living with dementia. They called the family member, and the family member came and picked them up, and that person went home. And that was all there was to that incident, which is something that is really exciting and what part of our education, right, is to reach out to the community so we all can recognize what those signs and symptoms are so we can support those family members and those people living with dementia. And then trial match. Trial match is something that is and by the way, all of our services are free of charge. We don't charge for any of our services. Trial match is something where a person either living with the disease and they also need healthy brains where people can sign up and be a part of this match. So if you are interested in a research study and you fit the criteria, you can decide if you want to participate in it or not. We're only going to solve this disease through research. We also have our Walk to End Alzheimer's, which is our largest fundraiser across the nation. We have one here in Steamboat. It's at the Botanic Gardens this year, which we're really excited about, September 5th. What's really exciting about our walk is that you'll see on the screen all of those flowers. Each one of those flowers mean a different thing. So whether someone is living with the disease, someone lost someone from the disease, someone is a care provider, or you just support the cause. And when you see that many people come together, and especially if you're a person living with the disease, or you're a family member and you realize you're not alone, we call it our largest support group. And we are the largest Alzheimer's advocacy organization in the world. That's a really quick synopsis of our organization, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, either about the disease, yes?
Yeah, well, you mentioned oxygen flowing to the brain. Have they done any studies of exercise and how it might have an impact on Alzheimer's?
Yeah, so it just goes back to that good vascular health. So when you have...
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, sorry. Wanted to know about, have they done research on exercise and just that blood flow to the brain? And again, it's just that that good vascular health. So when we exercise, we have that good pliability with our vascular health. And so also increasing that oxygenation to our brain. So we know what's good for your heart is good for your brain. There have been a lot of studies to answer your question directly. Yes. Yes.
A lot of your statistics were related to the United States. How does Alzheimer's rank as far as percentage of people that get it in Europe or South America? Because I know diet, we have more obesity, more diabetes, whatever here. So how does it relate to the rest of the world?
Like you've heard of the blue zones, or the areas where Mediterranean diet and that kind of thing. Yeah, so as a world, we're actually aging in most countries, not every country, but because age is the greatest risk factor, and as we're aging worldwide, it becomes an increased, I don't know the stats particularly, but I know Europe The UK are right there with us. So it is a disease that is affecting us globally. Yes.
Hi, I'm Larry Noble. I have a confession to make and then a question. I worked on Alzheimer's for like 20 years. Really good team. Paul Greenberg was a Nobel Prize winner. It's a really hard nut to crack. You want to stop it from happening. Exercise, eat right, do cognitive function as much as you can. Because I'm not optimistic that we're going to reverse it. My question, which I think I know the answer, but I'd like you to talk about is, how do you diagnose Alzheimer's versus vascular dementia? I think there's an equal amount of the two.
Yeah, you know, we used to say that we would only diagnose Alzheimer's through autopsy, but now there's enough nuanced studies, and you can actually determine, Medicare doesn't cover this yet, but through a PET scan, it will determine if you have Alzheimer's or not. But, you know, a lot of it, again, is still ruling out. So what are the symptoms? They do an MRI to look at brain shrinkage. Do people have, are they able to, you know, look at the plaques and tangles, which is what a PET scan will do. So still a lot of ruling out. A neuropsychologist oftentimes gets involved to do the nuance of, is this more frontal temporal dementia, or are we talking Lewy body dementia? So it is a lot of nuance, and there definitely is room for improvement there for sure. And I agree, we are so focused on just prevention that really, what are the lifestyle changes that we can make to really decrease our risk so we don't get it in the first place? Yes, sorry.
It's such an insidious disease that's very slow in acclimation. What are 3 hallmarks that you can look for to know a family member is in trouble or a friend?
Right. Really good question. Did everyone hear that? What are the hallmarks that you can look for in a family or friend? We also have a class called the 10 Warning Signs. But it is short-term memory loss. If you're having a conversation with someone and they're repeating themselves within that half hour, sometimes people can pull it together and, you know, talk to their physician for 15 minutes and the physician's like, well, I think they're good. But if you talk to that person a longer period of time, if they keep repeating themselves, if they're starting to have, when you know a person really well and they're starting to have any kind of change that seems unusual for that person, when big things or little things become big things. Maybe this person really wasn't bothered by something before and you're like, wow, that seems like off the cuff for that person. Why did they all of a sudden get upset about that? If they are withdrawing from conversations, some things happen really early on in dementia. And the other thing about dementia is that we know 10 years prior to someone outwardly exhibiting symptoms, that's actually happening in their brain already. So if you look at the withdrawing from conversation, like I said, if you're having a conversation with someone and they really don't seem to follow you, if someone's using a lot more memory aids, that might be a clue. I know a lady who's got sticky notes like all over her house. So those type of things. If someone, and you know, this can be later on, but if someone's driving down the road and they don't remember where they've, you know, gone. But oftentimes what's happening also, if you notice your family member starting to get dents in their car, because depth perception actually changes very quickly. And so we know that as people progress in the disease, they start to lose their peripheral vision. And so depth perception is, again, one of those early signs. Hearing also becomes impacted just from this is a loud room. If I were talking to you, our brains would start to filter out those other sounds and we could talk to one another. A person living with dementia starts to hear all of the stimulation and really has a hard time balancing that out, so they might become kind of overwhelmed. So all of those kind of things are things that you want to watch out for. But the big thing really is that if you know someone really well and they're starting, and you know, not to profile anyone, but they're older and you're starting to notice, wow, this seems unusual for them, you might, you know, investigate further. Yes?
The new drug that was approved by the FDA, and I followed some of the debate and discussion about that, how controversial it was. and then also the concern that a $55,000 pump has the potential to really bankrupt or accelerate the bankruptcy of the Medicare system, because this is a huge price tag.
Right.
Could you just give us maybe just a minute to talk about your perspective on the drug? I know it gives hope, because hope is certainly something that's very valuable as well. In terms of what are the perceived benefits by people with Alzheimer's community?
Yeah, the Alzheimer's Association actually did promote the passing with the FDA of that drug. You are right, it is very expensive. We're also advocating to Biogen that they lower that cost. And I think that what we heard from constituents, so people in the early stages living with the disease, and if you have very little hope, you're like, I will do whatever it is. And so doesn't mean that that's the final reason why you pass something, but it's very similar to an early AIDS epidemic and medications that in early cancer treatment. So we hope that this is the start of a conversation and start of building on something. Again, this is not the cure-all, end-all, and you're right, it will bankrupt Medicare in a short period of time if we have all these people that would be taking it. So it's not we haven't stopped there. It's a starting point that we're working on. Great question. Yes?
How do you start a conversation with that older family member who doesn't see the signs?
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that is that it takes a certain amount of brain health for us to be aware of our challenges, our overall bodily health. And so a lot of times people will call and say, my mom's just in denial. Well, it may not be that she's just in denial. It may be that she doesn't have the cognitive health anymore to be aware of her challenges. That's really hard to have a conversation when someone doesn't see those. So what we recommend is that people, in a very loving way, not like, well, you're doing this and this and this, to really kind of journal or write down what you're seeing, and then come to that person. I am really concerned because this is what I'm seeing, and I think we should go get checked out. We know that, again, from research, that a lot of older adults are worried about their memory as we age. We all are, right? You forget a word and you're like, oh my gosh, was that Alzheimer's? Where did I put my key? But there's a lot of typical aging, right? But we also know that people are worried, but it's not something they talk to their physicians about. And oftentimes physicians aren't asking them about it. And Medicare does cover a mini mental status exam that people can have done yearly. Not everyone has it done, but I would encourage people to do that just to have a baseline. Again, it's a screening tool. It's not, an in-depth assessment. Mini mental status exam. Yeah, MMSE. Yeah, to have a baseline. There's also something called the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. There's a lot of different types, but yeah. So, but it's tough. I know we're over time, and I just want to leave you with one really quick thought. It's a story that I love, and this lady her husband actually had younger onset Alzheimer's, and she was still needing to work, and she lived in a cul-de-sac, and she told all her neighbors about her husband's diagnosis because she would be gone during the day. And her husband would go out, walk down their long driveway, get his mail, and go back to the house, and she just wanted to make sure that neighbors had eyes and ears on him and that he was okay. Well, one day he went down to his mailbox and the next mailbox and the next mailbox, and he was gathering everyone's mail. And the neighbor saw that, and she went out and she said, John, I see you've got the mail. Let me help you deliver it. So they did a reverse and delivered everybody's mail. And then she went back and had coffee with him, and they repeated that almost every day for 2 years. That's a good neighbor building community. We often talk about how it takes a village to raise children. I think it takes a village as we age to wrap our arms around people and support them. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was eye-opening for a lot of us. Thank you very much. I had an uncle that was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's And I know his wife, my aunt, really struggled with that a lot. And I'm glad to hear that you're the largest independent funding organization in the world. That's impressive. Very impressive. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming up to Droll Old Steamboat to share that information with us. You're welcome back anytime. See, now's the time we can stop the recording because we're moving on to